Hi. So for my second book, I chose Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. So this book is kind of goes into well, first of all, he's a psychologist, and he's kind of evaluating how the mind works and how it processes thoughts. And he starts out pretty basic, and I really like this book. He kind of started out really basic, like I say, and moved up to the more complex things like decision making and choices we make, and ultimately, basically the two selves that we have, and how those kind of affect every decision that we make in our life. So he starts out with the basics about how we have two basic thought processes. The first one's that quick, instant decision that we make when we see something. We don't even think about it when we see it. For example, when you look at an object, you instantly know what it is. If you look at a lamp, you know that's a lamp, but you don't consciously think that that is a lamp. So there are things that we don't think about. They are quick and they happen fast and instantaneously. Then there's the second system, which requires like conscious thought and thinking about it. So if we want to just continue with the lamp, we know it's a lamp. We don't have to think about it being a lamp. But if we wanted to understand how it worked and what it's plugged into and what's making it run and how it looks and the shape and the size and things like that, and really like dig into the details of it, that's going to require us to move up to our second system in our brain, which allows us to dig into that kind of detail. He moves on from here to discuss that the systems have a finite amount of information that they can handle. And so with that being said, our brain kind of triages the information that we can take in and analyze and things like that. So like I said, some things will be assigned to System 1, things that we don't deem that are important, where we instantly make a judgment about them, and from there we can decide are they important to dedicate resources to dig into or not. And this is initially a survival mechanism, but now we use it to process all the information that we see on a daily basis. And it allows us to kind of function. Without the system, we wouldn't really be able to function in the world. We'd be so overwhelmed with details and information coming into our mind that we wouldn't be able to get our daily activities done. So understanding how the mind works, he then talks about different themes and I guess motifs that are active within our brain that drive our decision making in certain ways. One of the things he talks about is biases. Biases are kind of a supplement to System 1 and allow us to quickly make decisions and decide about things without having to think about them too much and dedicate too many mental resources, if you will, to understand something. So one of the things he talks about is it's kind of like a shortcut for us. And so one of the ones he talks about is our confidence. We're very quick to judge something and be confident in that judgment that we made initially. So when people say don't judge a book by its cover or first impressions are everything, first impressions really are everything, because you instantly make this snap judgment about someone regardless if you think that you don't or not. We all do it. It's part of our nature, and that sticks with us subconsciously. That's going to stick with us and drive all the subsequent thoughts we have about that subject or person. And this is a shortcut mechanism that our brain uses in order to process information efficiently. Moving on, he also kind of deals with overconfidence as a general trend in the mind, where when we think of something, we tend to be confident in that decision, whether it's a snap judgment or not. But then once we have made that decision, we're really assured of that decision that we are right. We believe in ourselves of being right, and it takes a lot of critical thinking and mental energy to assess ourselves not being right. So therefore, it's easier for us to think we are right and go with the fact that we think we're right and continue with that in our train of thought. So that kind of drives people to be very overconfident in the decisions that they make and the information that they process. And then the final two sections kind of are dealing with very similar things, choices that we make and kind of how those relate to ourselves. He calls them our two selves. So we have our kind of rational self and our experiential self, if you will, where we take the rational self kind of takes in all the facts that we have taken in and doesn't really take into account any other experiences or things like that we've had. It just takes the facts as we know them to be, assesses these facts if we learn to assess them throughout our lives, and then makes a decision based on those facts. Whereas the other self, the experienced self,
looks at our past decisions, regardless of the facts, and kind of says, well, I've had this similar situation before. I don't really care what the facts say. It goes back to our overconfidence thing, where we know what happened to us and we think that we're right. So we're going to take what happened to us as truth and kind of use that to build our decision about the information that we're getting. And so that can also lead to this overconfidence thing, which I felt was a pretty important theme that he kept coming back to in the book, and it's pretty important for finance, because we kind of talked about with CEOs who can be overconfident and things like that, and how that can drive decision making, as well as in like the financial markets. People are very confident in their decisions. People might cause these bubbles that we see, and then we get those bursts eventually. So it was a really good book. I enjoyed reading it. If anyone gets a chance to read it, highly recommend it. Look forward to watching all your presentations. Thanks.